who's going to go higher in the draft, Michael Penix or J.J. McCarthy?
I think Penix will, as we sit here right now, Suzy. But you and I both know, and Amy knows this really well, what we're sitting here saying right now, the run up to the draft, it changes a lot. You know what it's like? It's like a fumble with a big pile of players, and we know the ball exchanges hands a couple of times.
Great analogy.
Because what I've seen in the last few years is the rise of players. Let's keep it the quarterback position. Joe Burrow, going into his senior year at LSU, had a day 3 grade on him from almost every scout I talked to, meaning rounds 4 through 7. Because when people hear day 3, they're like, oh my God, no, rounds 4 through 7 is not a disaster. But it's a far cry from being the top pick in the draft. And I'll never forget his senior year. I went to New Orleans for a Saints game and talked to someone with the Saints that I've known very well, a high up. And he just casually said to me, yo, you seen the LSU kid play yet? And I said, it's funny. I was watching such and such, but I didn't get to see much of it. He said, hey, man, he might be number 1 pick in the draft. I said, he's got a third day grade on it. He goes, not anymore, he doesn't. Zach Wilson, for all the grief he's gotten now in recent years with the Jets, he was a 3rd day grade. His senior year last year goes up and becomes the number 2 pick in the draft. Let's let all this play out. As we sit here now, I would say Penix, because he's playing in the cauldron and he's putting up the numbers and playing really well in the biggest games. When you go back, they weren't supposed to beat Oregon either time. They were the underdog in both of those games. And he was a big difference in both of them. How about last night against Texas? He was huge in that game. He is that guy now, because we're all vying for who's QB3. It's Caleb Williams, Drake May. Who's the 3rd guy? Penix right now is sitting there. McCarthy from Michigan is a little bit of a sleeper because Michigan runs the heck out of the football, and he's not throwing it 45 times a game. That shouldn't be held against him, but people are going to have to dig a little more because we see all the throws from these other guys. Let's find out what McCarthy brings to the table. Leadership, game management, people believing in what he does, big throws at big times. Was there a bigger play down the stretch than that throw he made with the kid snatching and ends up going down? How about 4th and 2 from your own 30?
Right. Yeah, I got to tell you, I thought that was going to go over his head. I thought that was the catch of the game. That was the moment of the game. Roman extended and brought down a ball that he overthrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the 4th and 2 on their own 30.
Yeah.
You know how tight a person is going to get in that situation? Mm-hmm. He could have very easily 2-hopped that pass because he was so tight. I've got to make this. I've got to execute it. He executed it like, oh, yeah, this is just a practice play, which tells me about the confidence of the young man, that he's in the moment and he's not going to be deterred. That was a big one. Great play call, but he could have very easily missed it, and he didn't. He put it right on him, and off they went. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out, and I'm going to leave you guys with this one on these quarterbacks. There are a number of these quarterbacks that we're talking about that still have eligibility left. And they are all going to jockey with each other up until the day your name has to be in for the draft about, do I stay or do I go? Because in some cases, staying in school will rise their draft stock higher next year. If they come out, maybe there's not as many quarterbacks in the pool this year. It's better for me now. They're all eyeing each other across the board. Who's staying, who's going? And a big reason why they're able to do that, 3 letters, NIL.
Mm-hmm. Charles, you are spot on your observation that we need to let this play out. The draft isn't a science. There's no Enigma code. There's no Rosetta Stone. And what always astonished me during my years in the league, and I saw this firsthand within our organization, with our scouting department, with our coaches, is how they can be persuaded by grades they read on reports from people they're not working with. Look, you've got game film. We used to call it film back in the day. I get it. It's not film anymore. But you've got film. You've watched them play. You've been at the games. Make your own decision. But teams really are swayed by public perception. So you're absolutely right. We've got to let it play out.
I agree.
Prediction
it
for
happens
me?
to all of us.
Prediction for me on the national championship?
I like Michigan. I think they're the best team in the country. They have been throughout the year. They proved it again on Saturday. Washington is nothing to be played with, though. This is a team that has gotten very comfortable with one-score games. I think last night was their 9th game this year. It was a one-score game. So they don't back down off of this. As a lot of coaches would say, they don't flinch. So it'll be fun to watch. But I do think Michigan has been the best team starting about mid-season and throughout this time. And they proved it again the other night because Alabama had them on the ropes. And they were one drive away from putting that thing away. Michigan didn't let it happen and then came back and got them. So I give them nothing but credit in that one. I like Michigan in the championship game.
Check out new episodes of What the Football with Suzy Shuster and Amy Trask every Tuesday. Watch us on the Rich Eisen Show YouTube page or follow and listen wherever you get your podcasts.